The Ottoman Empire, in its peak, was one of the most influential superpowers in the world, dominating Balkans and whole Muslim world. But now it is barely holding its possessions in the Middle East and Tripolitania. But the situation is not as bad as it seems, because despite their internal problems and bad performance in the Great War, the empire did not collapse entirely, which was really possible. And under the rule of Sultan Abdulmajid II and the Grand Vizier Mustafa Kemal Pasha, our country is modernizing and economy improving. Even the Berlin stock market crash couldn't stop the modernizing empire, and so everybody fought. But then it came, the protests, and they were worse than in the last years. But on the international stage, Ottoman position was also not awful, because they managed to intervene in some minor wars. They sent some arms and volunteers to Afghani Emirate to help them with fighting British India. But going back to some more important matters, the civil war was ignited between our loyal subjects and rebellious forces in the Arabian Peninsula. But there was no time for that, because our intelligence network discovered a conspiracy against our Grand Vizier. But Mustafa Kemal himself ordered not to do anything in order not to destabilize the state, and it turned out to be a fatal mistake, because Mustafa Kemal, during his speech in Izmir, was shot 2 times and died some days later in the hospital. After the loss of our national hero, the power struggle between different factions in the party has begun, and the OHF started to collapse. But sometime after that, where everybody thought that demise was imminent, the internal elections were held, and it was announced that old and trusted Mustafa's friend Fevzi Pasha was elected as a party leader. After becoming in charge of the OHF, and after gaining trust of the populace, he with his military faction launched a coup in the country, and after succeeding in it, he proceeded to further strengthen his position in the country. And he did it by establishing Ismet Pasha as a Grand Vizier and completely destroying the opposition, and also reforming the military so they won't overthrow him back. Fortunately for him, he achieved both goals fairly easily, stabilizing and consolidating his rule. But that time of instability allowed some unhappy minorities to rebel and strike against our rule, and so it happened. The Assyrians declared independence. Unfortunately, our army was not ready for that battle, because they were under-equipped, and the Assyrians got arms shipments and volunteers from the Entente, and so we had to agree to sign a humiliating peace treaty with the Assyrians, forcing us to recognize Assyria as a semi-independent state within the Ottoman Empire, with their own parliament and self-governance of their own lands. But sometime after the Assyrian revolt, another tragedy unfolded, because there was a coup in our puppet government in Tripolitania, orchestrated by the Egyptians. But we were still not ready for that, because our troops were on the other side of the empire, not ready to fight them. And so, Tripolitania became an Egyptian puppet. And finally, once we thought that we'll have some time to rebuild our state, Egypt and Persia both declared war on us at the same time, and also the Syrians rebelled in Damascus and Armenians in Yerevan. After all of our failures, they all thought that we were defenseless, but they were wrong. We are prepared for them this time, and we will show them our might and glory. So yeah, let's begin the Desert War. The plan is fairly simple. We will strike at Syria and Armenia because they are fairly weak.
Grrr!
One dead. After we reconquered Syria, new obstacles to face quickly appeared. because there was another Syrian revolt. And so, we crushed the revolt for the second time, and now it is time to prepare a naval invasion of Egypt. And soon, Jabal Shammar also betrayed us, which forced us into the war with them. And after the quick conquest of Arabia, it is time to finish Persia and Yemen. After the Desert War, the Ottomans reinstated the rule of Egypt, Tripolitania, Persia, and the Arabian Peninsula. After this dreadful war, we took some time to stabilize our rule under our old and new possessions. But the ruler of Jabal Shammar was not happy with our rule, and he declared independence. So they got crushed once again. But once it was dealt with, and the situation was mostly stable, and peace in the region was bound to last forever. Just kidding, baby! After some time of build-up, Fevzi Pasha decided to reclaim some old Ottoman possessions in the Balkans. And so, the invasion of Bulgaria has begun. All in all, the war was fairly easy. At first, there were some issues with breaking through their defenses, because they had fortified borders. But once we pushed through their forts, our offensive was now unstoppable, and we quickly got them to surrender. And we did the same with Greeks, which fell apart even quicker than the Bulgarians. We annexed both countries, gaining access to the Mediterranean Sea, and so we regained at least some of our old glory, and we proved that the sick man of Europe is not as sick as everybody thought, and can take on any challenge that fate brings it to face.